What if everything you've been told about death isn't the truth? What if behind the comforting light, the peaceful voices, and the promise of heaven, there hides something else? A system so ancient, so cleverly disguised, that it has kept human souls recycling for eons. They say death is freedom. But what if death is the oldest illusion of all? Most people never question it. They follow the light. They hear the familiar voices calling their name and they go. Because that's what we've been told to do. But the Gnostics, those mystics of the early centuries, whispered a very different story. They claimed that this world is not the creation of a benevolent God, but of a false one. An arrogant architect who declared himself the only ruler. They called him the Demiurge, the maker of matter, the warden of this cosmic prison. And according to them, the cycle of birth and death was his greatest invention. A loop designed to keep souls trapped in endless reincarnation, feeding the system that sustains his dominion. Think about it. You live, you suffer, you die. And you return again, forgetting everything you once knew. Each lifetime, the same struggles, the same lessons, the same longing for something beyond this world. But what if that longing is the very mechanism that keeps you bound here? Long ago, hidden in the desert caves of Egypt, the Gnostic scrolls warned humanity of this deception. They said that between the worlds, there is a false light, a radiant snare woven to lure the soul back into the game. It appears comforting, familiar, even holy, but its purpose is not liberation, it's control. When you die, they said, you'll see this light. It will call you gently. Loved ones will appear. You'll feel warmth, peace, and relief. But if you follow it, you return. This idea sounds extreme, even terrifying. Yet across cultures, whispers of the same warning appear. The Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of dazzling lights that tempt the soul into rebirth. Even early Christian thinkers hinted that our existence may be cyclical, that we might have lived before. But these teachings were buried, banned, or rewritten. Because if humanity remembered that it was being recycled, the whole illusion would collapse. A population that no longer fears death cannot be controlled. So the illusion must remain comforting. Heaven and hell. Reward and punishment. The story changes, but the purpose stays the same. To keep you believing that after death comes judgment, and after judgment comes another round. The Gnostics saw through it. They said the soul's true home lies beyond this entire construct. Beyond the stars, beyond the archons, in the realm of pure light called the pleroma. That is where the spark of divinity truly belongs. But to return there, the soul must awaken, must remember what it really is. Because ignorance is the glue of the trap, and remembrance is the key that breaks it. You can feel it, can't you? That strange sense that life itself sometimes loops. The déjà vu, the repeating patterns, the uncanny familiarity with places you've never been. Perhaps these are not coincidences. Perhaps they are echoes of lives before, fragments of the same dream repeating itself. So here's the real question. If death is not the end, if even the light can lie, how does one escape? The Gnostic said it begins not at death but in life, right now. Because the only souls that can be recycled are those who still believe they are prisoners. Those who identify with the body, with fear, with the endless need to learn lessons. But the awakened soul, the one that remembers, cannot be caught. It recognizes the illusion for what it is. The Demiurge can only hold what vibrates at his frequency. And the moment you awaken beyond it, when you realize you are consciousness itself, not a being moving through time, his grip dissolves. So, as strange as it sounds, the real preparation for death is not a ritual, not a religion, not even a belief. It's awareness. It's the moment you stop running toward light and start remembering that you already are it. The Gnostics warned, "Be careful, soul, for not all that shines is light." They meant that discernment, the ability to feel truth from illusion, is the highest form of spiritual power. Because when the moment comes and the tunnel appears and the voices call your name, you must be able to ask, is this real light or a reflection designed to bind me again? The practice begins now. In every moment you choose awareness over fear. Every time you pause and question the stories you've been told. Every time you remember that you are not your body, not your past, not your roles. Every act of remembrance cracks the walls of the cage. And one day when death comes knocking, you won't run toward the trap. You'll stand still, silent, awake, and see through it. When the body falls away and the veil begins to thin, that is when the test begins. The Gnostics said death is not an ending but an initiation. The moment your senses fade and the world dissolves, you find yourself floating in a sea of light. Everything feels weightless, beautiful, familiar. And then the pull begins. A tunnel opens. Voices call your name. The light feels like home. But here's the secret they never told you. What you see in that moment might not be heaven. It might be a reflection built to keep you asleep. An echo of your own longing. A mirage crafted by forces who feed on return. The ancients called them Archons, the gatekeepers of the cycle. They questioned, they judged, they remind you of guilt, of unfinished stories, of promises unkept. They whisper that you must go back and learn more. But who are they really? Are they gods? Judges? Or projections of the very beliefs that keep you bound? The Gnostics said, judgment itself is the trap, because the moment the soul believes it has failed, it agrees to return. And that agreement becomes the key that locks the door. Perhaps the real hell is not a fiery realm below, but returning again and again to the same dream, thinking you're making progress, when in truth you're just orbiting the same point in eternity. Think of karma not as cosmic justice, but as programming. Each action, each emotion, each attachment leaves an imprint in the field of consciousness. Those imprints pull you back, into families, into patterns, into bodies that replay old pain. And yet, this entire system depends on one thing: your identification with the story. When you think you are the story, you keep acting it out. When you realize you are the awareness watching it unfold, you step outside the loop. That is why the Gnostics taught gnosis, direct knowing, not belief, not faith, but remembrance. They said that every soul carries within it a spark of the true light, and that spark remembers home, even in the darkest illusion. So how do you awaken it? Not by seeking new heavens or escaping the world, but by looking directly at the illusion and seeing through it. When you meditate, when you fall into silence and feel yourself watching thoughts come and go, you're practicing death. You're learning to stay conscious as worlds dissolve. You're training to recognize what is real and what is imitation. That awareness, here now, is the rehearsal for the final moment. Because when you die, the same mechanism appears. Images, lights, emotions, memories. If you can remain calm, centered, aware. If you can recognize the difference between what dazzles and what awakens, you'll see the false light for what it is. The Gnostics described the true light of the pleroma as silent, vast, and self-luminous. It doesn't pull you. It doesn't flatter or demand. It simply is. When you feel that light, you'll know it, because it frees you, not binds you. That is the subtle key. The false light calls you toward it. The true light reveals that you were never apart from it. So the real work is not waiting for death to test you, but dissolving the illusions that bind you now. The constant chase for approval, the need to be right, the fear of loss. Each attachment is a thread in the web. Each release is a cut in the net. To live awake is to practice freedom every day. When you no longer vibrate with fear or guilt, the Archons have nothing to hold on to. When you no longer chase light outside of yourself, you cannot be lured by imitation. The Gnostics said that remembrance is salvation. Not remembering facts or doctrines, but remembering what you are. You are consciousness, timeless and radiant, merely dreaming of being human. The trap exists only as long as you forget. So ask yourself now, if you were to die tonight, and the light appeared before you, would you walk into it? Or would you pause, feel your own radiance, and realize that the true light was never outside you at all? That question is the essence of gnosis. To live with it is to prepare for liberation, because the moment you see through illusion, you awaken even while still alive. And maybe that's the secret the ancients tried to tell us all along. that death isn't the enemy, and life isn't the prize. Both are part of the same dream. Freedom begins when you stop chasing either one. So live with awareness. Look beyond appearances. Remember what you are. Because the soul that remembers cannot be trapped. The soul that awakens cannot be deceived. And when the moment comes, you'll know the difference between the false light and the real. Stay awake, stay aware, and remember, you were never meant to return.